count to 10 before you can actually get started, that kind of thing.
I don't know. There's signals on the screen. It's like I wish I could use them to, but I think that's the signal. And happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let's Build Superhumans with George B. Thomas. How you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing good. It's Thursday, September 26th. I'm officially 1 year older.
Woo!
My goodness. So, 53 and still rocking out the hats and hoodies, because that's who I decided to be on the planet. And but it's an exciting day. I get to create content, I get to meet with humans, and I get to be hungry and hustle a little bit, but in good ways, which we'll get into that.
Yes, we will. Definitely hunger shows up in multiple ways. That's going to be the sixth pillar of the superhuman framework we're talking about today. After we have hit on, uh,
Let's see if you can do it.
I want to be able to do it in order, but not sure. Holistic, um, humble is definitely not in order. Holiness, happy,
Helpful.
helpful.
There we go.
Keep on wanting to go to healthy, but I think that's like,
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there.
That's coming up. But yeah, hunger.
On that one, I'm just gonna do jumping jacks the entire time for the entire
right. Yeah, a little more work than that.
Maybe a few burpees
required, right? But yeah, today talking about hungry. Like, it's easy to relate it to the grind and the hustle. But these other five pillars that we just mentioned, kind of without those, and without the rest of the framework in place, it leads to burnout, leads to some tough mental situations. And so that's why this is an important piece of the puzzle. But again, it's always connected to everything else. So when you're having, like, if somebody were to like come up to you, and you can take this in a different direction if you want, but like, man, I'm working my ass off and it's just not happening for me. Where would you even start to kind of break that down?
So there's a couple things happening right there, right? Like, first of all, working hard is not a bad thing. You should not be allergic to working hard. Um, the point that I would be like is, but nothing's happening. Well, then what are you working on? Because just because you're riding I don't know, a bicycle, a workout bicycle, you're not going anywhere. You're just spinning there. You're walking on a treadmill, right? I'm literally bringing in the healthy things because you mentioned it. Like, walking on a treadmill, great, but you're not going anywhere. Like, so the work that you're doing might be the wrong work. So that has nothing to do with hustle, by the way. That just has to do with like piss poor strategy. And so again, there's two things. One, well, are you working on the right things? And two, are you working hard because of ignorance, or are you working hard because it has to be hard work? What I mean is, we've all heard the saying of, like, work smarter, not harder. No, duh. Really? Thanks for the news flash. But in today's culture, like, there's people need to wake up. There's a lot changing. Like, if you're not leveraging some sort of AI to do the thing that you're trying to work on because you have a dope strategy, then right there, I could be like, oh, well, have you thought about this, that, and the other thing? The thing that I want to really talk about here is when we talk about hungry, the reason we're not using the word hustle is because there is a negative connotation. Like, first of all, there's hustler, which is just no. And hustle, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's actually like a negative term. And it was like the entrepreneurial space that like grabbed hustle and hustle your face off, and Gary V. And like back in the day, I was all like down with it. But to be honest, when I worked with Marcus, Chris, one of the things that was a hashtag around the Hubcast when we did it was hashtag GSD. To my brand, GBT, hashtag GSD, get stuff done. There's another way you can say it, but I just say stuff, right? And so To the point where, bro, I put myself in the hospital. I ended up in the hospital for 3.5 days where they thought I had a heart attack or a stroke. They weren't sure. And it was like MRIs and CAT scans and all sorts of, but it was because I was hustling my face off, rise and grind, doing that thing. And so like after that incident, I was like, man, there needs to be a healthy hustle. Like, because I don't want to lose the work ethics, but I want to be able to like well, live on the planet longer, right? And so when I start to think about my experience, uh, there's this difference between hunger and toxic hustle culture. And I think most everybody knows what I'm talking about, like this glorification of working nonstop. Which, by the way, when I say it, sounds just dumb as hell, right? Oh yeah, I did work 24/7, blow up your no. But it was almost like this badge of honor that people wear because they're doing like this thing and they want to prove to the world that they're doing this thing. How about you just prove to yourself that you're worth enough to do the things that you're doing? And that's enough value on the planet instead of broadcasting it in this like rise and grind or hustle culture. Like, anyway, this
No,
idea that you must constantly be on the go to prove your worth.
yeah,
Uh there there's something missing there, right?
right,
The- it- it's first of all, it's mentally dangerous. Like embracing that culture, living that way can have some serious consequences. Like if you're in a because I don't know who's going to watch this, Chris. But if you're in this thing where it's this glorified constant work at the expense of your well-being, you are setting yourself up, and also, by the way, the others around you, friends, families, uh, you're setting your ecosystem, your bubble, your circle for burnout, disengagement, mental health issues, potentially hospital stays. Like I shared that on purpose. I'm speaking from historical knowledge of what this can do.
yeah. Can we just like dig in a little bit? When you went to the hospital, what do you think, if you can remember back, like your goals were that, or what was motivating you to hustle so hard?
Um, oh, I get to sit on the therapy couch this morning. Um, I was proving to the world that I was worthy of a space. I was taking a high school dropout who believed that he would not be able to be anything or do anything special into an elevated state of building a brand around George B. Thomas in the HubSpot ecosystem. I was trying to prove, even though I didn't need to a boss that he made a smart decision when he decided to hire me onto his team because I was going to be the guy that no matter what, hell or high water, I'm your guy. I'm going to get it done. And so I think also part of this, if I'm being honest here on this, is I was trying to prove to myself, not only the world, not only him, but myself, like I've I've got the chops. Which, by the way, if you dive into this, it was hustle based out of this imposter syndrome disease that was brewing inside of me at that point. Um,
Yeah, no, I
it,
think that's when you said work smarter, not harder. Um, I'm constantly thinking about this space between the individual that's showing up at the workplace and the leaders that are expecting things from those individuals, and how we got to the place where leaders are saying, like, I don't know why the paycheck's not enough anymore. Like, we just showed up because it was our job to show up and do work, and that's not good enough, and I don't even understand it. Like, it's not that they're like they're frustrated with it because they can't figure it out. It's not that they're like mad at individuals necessarily, but when you say work smarter, not harder, there's this the gap between work smarter for you or work smarter for me,
Well,
right?
and yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, and I think this is a little bit of a side tangent to this conversation is, and I'm gonna speak from the employee position right now. I never felt like I was just working smarter or harder for an employer. Like, and now younger, when I sure if I was working at McDonald's, scratch that. Pizza Hut, scratch that. Like, whatever. But when I got into this place where it was about building together a brand, George B. Thomas, Marcus Sheridan, George B. Thomas, Remington Begg, when Impulse Creative, the sales line, right? When there were entities building brands together, there was an interesting switch that flipped in my brain right around the same time that I discovered HubSpot and started educating myself around HubSpot Academy and what you could do. That is, I picked up owner's mentality. Even though I was an employee, I had an owner's mentality, and so I never thought it was a them and us conversation. It was just a us. We're all headed in a direction, building brands. Marcus, George, the sales line, Remington, George, Impulse Creative. And so one of the things that I would tell people, if you're truly trying to unlock the true hunger, the true hustle, the healthy hustle, is that having an owner's mentality is going to be part of the unlock, because then it becomes less about clock in, clock out. It becomes less about work, more about play. It becomes more of like a fruitful and enjoyable journey that you're like, I, I, I want more, but I want more because I have balance. Like, and here's the thing: I want to kind of dig back into the word hustle, because the word itself, hustle, isn't the problem. Like, it's how we approach that, right? I mentioned balance. When hunger or hustle is aligned with purpose and balanced with well-being, it actually becomes an incredible force for good. Which, by the way, I feel like that's how I leverage it, because it's part of the 10 H elements of the Superhuman Framework. Is it is well balanced. It is a force in my life for good, versus this like negative connotation that I was pointing at the beginning. It's not for me, and shouldn't be for the listeners or viewers, about doing more for the sake of doing more. Because sometimes there were days that I would just like, I could be done, but I don't want to be done because I can do more. Hustle my face off. It's about doing the right things. By the way, back to your original question, with intention. Like, I'm working so hard and it's not right things, intention, strategy, right? And so that's where real growth happens, whether it's a personal level, whether it's in teams, whether it's across entire organizations, because now the culture is focused on being balanced, well intentioned, strategical, and then hungry to get it done, because we're all moving in the same direction.
Yeah. What came to mind there, and like, so I'm one of those guys that can turn like anything into a learning experience, no matter how like non-professional or
Right.
not. I'm not the one making fun of the people that try to turn any story into some kind of business lesson, because I think there is lessons to be learned all around us.
Without a doubt.
But when I've gone to, so my wife is from Colombia. She's got a bunch of family in Spain, and when you go to those two places, it is clear that there is a different vibe about like daily activity, and like just the chill nature, the like the they're just having a good time. They find ways to have a good time. um And when I thought into why it felt so different between there and in the US, it's like the priorities, right? In the US, it's very easy to point to productivity, hustle, like success financially as the goal that everybody thinks they should have, or, everybody talks about needing to have. And then you think about over there, and clearly friends and family are always
Yep.
over that and
Yep.
these other cultures. And it's like when you can kind of connect those dots, and it can help you take a step back. And then it's like, okay, it is about priorities. It is about what's important to me. It is about what makes me happy. And if I'm doing this other thing because other people want me to, or other people are telling me to do it, like, of course I'm going to get burned out.
Yeah. And it's funny that I think you've mentioned burnout a couple of times, which by the way, we just did an episode. It'll be releasing either later today or tomorrow on the Beyond Your Default podcast about burnout, like specifically just talking about burnout. And it's funny, Chris, because I think priorities is a key word that we have to hit upon. I'll give you a really interesting example in our organization. Because, by the way, we're putting these 10 H's when I'm talking to you the lens of personal growth, which we'll get back to in a minute. Teams, I'll talk about that in a minute too, and company culture. An example of this is in our company, Sidekick Strategies, we literally have a hashtag called hashtag family first. If somebody slacks me, and ish is hitting the fan, they're going to get a response. Hashtag family first. Let me know when you're back. Like, go take care of yourself. Go take care of your wife. Go take care of your partner. Go take care of your kid. Go take care of your dog. I don't care. Like, life is going to life. And I'm not going to be the dick that is like, and sidekick strategies is more important. Like, no. Hashtag family first. Priorities. The other thing that came to my mind when you were talking about that is this Americanization of success is financial. Man, mo money, mo problems. I'm just going to throw that out there. The rappers knew what they were talking about because it doesn't get any, like, sure, does it make life more interesting? Can you get things that you want? Yeah. But here's another part of our culture is that everybody in the organization knows that we are not chasing success. Everybody in this organization is chasing significance. We want to be of value. We want to create ripples. And we understand that out of value and ripples, that finances, reciprocity, ROI, it'll come our way. But that's not the goal. That's the effect or the results of the true goal, significance and ripples. So Chris, I want to dig back into this because we always end up like running out of time. I need the individual humans to understand when we're talking about hunger in personal growth, like you as an individual human, it should be that deep curiosity for learning, uh, deep need or want for self improvement. It's the fire inside that drives you to ask, what else can I learn? How can I be better tomorrow than I am today? Chris, you've heard me say 1% better each and every day. It's literally the hunger, the statement of hunger. But here's the kicker. You've got to approach that hunger in a way that doesn't lead to, and punchline, burnout, right? Chris has mentioned it a couple times. We're doing an episode on it because when I talk about sidekick strategies, I originally didn't want to be an agency because I didn't want to be a toxic waste dump. What say that I didn't want employees that were burnt out. So there's this fine line of like pushing ourselves um over the edge. Hustling without boundaries is what leads to burnout faster than anything. It's not how much you can get done in a day, but how consistently you can keep moving forward over time, long-term strategy, right? Like to sustain that hunger, you've got to set these boundaries in your life and give yourself time to recharge, time for self-care. I know that feels like a very like touchy-feely thing, but again, we did an episode on self-care on Beyond Your Default, and I was like, Liz, Mm. Why are we this? Because I'm feeling very uncomfortable right
I
now. Like,
remember that one.
right, but this is also then months later. I went with my wives and daughters and got like a manicure and a pedicure and like self care and like. I'm like, actually, this is kind of dope. I'm
this,
not
this,
sure why nobody told me
this could
about
be all
this.
right. This
Like,
could be
this
all
could
right.
be okay. Like, it's okay to take care of yourself, right? And so when you're thinking about hunger, hustle, and boundaries, like everybody from the personal level needs to remember that it's okay to focus on self-care. Self-care is not selfish. It's how you keep the hunger, the hustle alive, and keep it burning bright. Because especially for individuals, it is a marathon. It is not a sprint, right? So, Chris, if we start to think about, well, okay, if it's an individual and it's about this learning and it's about this marathon that they're on, how can I become better consistently over time? When we shift to team dynamics, things get even more interesting because in a great team, hunger isn't an individual sport. Now forget like the one person running a marathon. This is a collective journey when you start to think about hunger inside of teams. It's about everybody bringing their A game and striving to contribute their best, but doing it in a way that lifts the group whole group. That's where the magic of we'll call it the synergy of this hunger in teams kicks in. When a shared hunger, passion, you call it whatever you want, drive um, for success or significance drives a team. It's not just about the personal wins, but it's about how the team as a whole achieved excellence. But if you look at your team's leaders and you watch your teams, what I'm watching for is, are they starting to overextend themselves? Do they not have a barometer or thermometer or meter to how far they're willing to go as a leader? Like, I have to understand I might have to be that barometer because it's only a matter of time before that team hits the wall. I might see a temporary boost in productivity and be like, wee, if I'm not paying attention to this. But eventually, burnout will settle in that team. And then you're a leader going, oh no. Because immediately when burnout starts to set in or quickly after, now you will see that morale will drop. And morale will drop. And now all of a sudden, that's not a cohesive team. All of a sudden, they don't like the place that they work. All of a sudden, people are going out the back door. All of a sudden, we're losing billions of dollars because a leader didn't pay attention to the hunger that was activated, but not throttled to what it needed to be. Like, leaders need to pay close attention to this. It's our responsibility to create or foster an environment where it's okay to work hard, but it's okay to step back. It's okay to take a break. Yo, it's okay to recharge. Which, by the way, is why when Jorge from my team says, hey, I've got these like 11 days that I want to take off this day, like individual days. I'm not even talking about vacation. The conversation is sweet. You obviously are being proactive to the time that you need to step back, take a break, and recharge. And I'm totally down with that. This idea of setting a pace for your teams that balances productivity with well-being, it is, if I could just give organizations one thing from this session that we're having, setting a pace that balances productivity with well-being is absolutely crucial to the long-term success of your organization. I could go into company culture, but Chris, where's your brain at right now? I see you thinking.
Balancing productivity with well-being, right? That's what you just mentioned. That's where that other half, like leaders have to feel like it's their job to create the space for well-being and not create just productivity focus, right? Like, and in most orgs, the leader, let's say the CEO in this case, Like I see them as responsible for two primary things, and that's setting vision and making sure everybody's aligned with that vision, and then resourcing the organization. That includes the people that you have, right? And making sure they are always showing up the way that they need to support the overall vision. And this is where the drive towards productivity and the drive towards P&L, like, and you're constantly looking at black and white numbers, you're going to completely miss all these things, EBITDA, all these things. I've seen it in person, like like, oh, we're talking about EBITDA, it's great, and you're not listening to the people telling you, yeah, this is great, but because we're breaking our backs at the end of the month to make sure that EBITDA looks so damn good, and meanwhile we can't get a full staff, right? And that's where unintentional things become very intentional immediately when people are start missing work. And you talking about uh like the burnout, the react what like your body will handle it for you. Like
Oh yeah.
that's where all these things are connected, and I can tell when I'm going too hard because all of a sudden I can't get up in the morning, like I gotta sleep, or other forms of recovery are kind of forced upon us
Yep.
by our bodies or by our minds or whatever. And it's just not a good look. And that's where, if you're a leader and all of a sudden you start seeing lags, I mean, this is what servant leadership is all about. Like, if you
Yes.
don't know what to do, like how to, like, you see your org and you're like, I've never done this before, I don't even know where to start, just talk to your team and ask the question, like, what do you need? Like,
Oh,
what can I do for you?
yeah, there's so much around servant leadership, and I think when you are going in this direction, it's like, how do you start to pay attention to this? Well, you bake it into your culture, your company culture. It's something that you're constantly thinking about, which means that you might not have time to think about some of the other things that historically have been important based on the financial success. Which, by the way, I'm not saying don't pay attention to your financials. You need to stay in business. I don't need to get like yelled at or sued. So like, you still have to like be a good boss and have the things in place to like stay financially fluent for the humans to have a place to stay. But when I think about this company culture piece, like, the stakes are so high on this culture level because it, and we see this over and over in organizations, but pushing employees beyond their limits is a freaking recipe for disaster. It creates stress, turnover, and ultimately a toxic environment, Chris, where people have to choose between their career and their health. If you're in a place, oh,
Don't ask
if
people to
if
make that
if
choice.
you are in a place right now where that is a choice that you have to make, you might not be in the right place. I
And
mean,
that's
let's
what
be real. Let's be real, Chris. Nobody should have to make that choice. Like, to put food on the table, to get a weekly, bi-weekly, whatever paycheck, or to be able to breathe another day, or not have mental health. Like, no, no. So a company that values its people, I believe, these are my beliefs, will encourage and put in place things for work-life balance. It's not just a buzzword at those organizations, because there are plenty of organizations where work-life balance is a buzzword. But I think in an organization that really cares about the culture and about this hunger and about watching out for burnout and stress, it becomes a core part of its DNA. Your employees need to feel empowered to take the time that they need. We should be giving them ways. By the way, I could go on a whole, your historical benefit package is bullshit, and what you should be giving as benefits moving forward is completely changed. But like, if we're not doing things around like mindfulness, if we're not doing things around like, especially if you got a lot of work from home folks and you've got like a house cleaning stipend, or like, because now their mind isn't thinking about, or like have Do you have where in your organization they can get like these meals that are sent to them? Because now guess what? They're in the meeting with you, thinking strategy, not thinking what they're gonna make for dinner. They're in the meeting with you thinking strategy, not worried about as soon as they hang up, picking up the vacuum cleaner and vacuuming their living room floor after they're done with the meeting. Like everything has changed. People need to wake up. And so the best companies don't just demand this kind of hustle or this hunger. Because, by the way, demand doesn't do jack squat, but best companies cultivate it in the way that they allow employees to push boundaries, the way that they let their employees think creatively, the way they allow their employees, dare I say, to take risks without fear, without fear of burning out, without fear of being pushed, without fear of being judged. Like it's that kind of balance that keeps hunger sustainable. Again, making it a force in company cultures, in organizations for innovation and growth.
Yeah. And we talk about culture because that question that I suggest you ask is what do you need? Right? That's not a trick or a hack that I can be like, hey George, what do you need? And then you tell me, having I've never asked you that question before. And you tell me, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like we'll go back to I'll go get that. And you might have to ask that question 10, 20, 30 times. If there's been no history of that happening in the organization before somebody will actually feel safe and feel empowered to give you the real answer, for what they need. So whether it is work from home or the office, it is about creating this environment wherever they are for them to be able to do their best work, right? And that's where you can only, if you've never done this before, the only way that happens is by talking to your teams and doing it, like making it clear that this is not just a new tactic, a new trick that I'm trying to get the most out of you. It is very much the opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I'm sitting here and I'm like wishing, and not that anybody would watch for that length of time, but I literally feel like we could talk about these topics for like 3 hours at a time because there's so much that I want to talk about hunger and humility. There's so much that I want to talk about hunger and grit. There's so much that I want to talk about when it comes to hunger and rest and play. Like there's so many other directions that we could go in this, but I definitely want to make sure that we wrap up as we kind of get ready to close this bad boy because time flies when you're having fun, baby.
It does.
Of some actionable items, right? So I want to wrap up with some tips that you can use to really harness that healthy hunger in your life, your teams, and your company. It's one thing to talk about balancing hunger with well-being, but it's another to actually put it into practice. So, how do you stay driven and passionate while avoiding burnout? By the way, that's a question that you should be asking yourself probably on a daily, at least weekly basis is how do we stay driven and passionate while avoiding burnout? So, if I let my kind of brain go and think about this for individuals, I think it starts with setting personal growth goals. Uh, so, I have a whiteboard right over here to the left of me that has like things personally that excite me. Has nothing to do with my business, by the way. Although, let's be honest, some things do have to do with my business. But we're not talking about goals that just look good on paper, though, or goals that you think you're supposed to have. You know how many supposed to have goals people have instead of the true goals that they actually want to have that excite them? Well, I'm supposed to lose weight. I'm supposed to meditate. I'm supposed to want no, no, no. You better sit down at a base of a tree, actually start to understand yourself a little bit, and actually get real goals on that board that excites you. I'm talking about the goals that light a fire inside you, light a fire under your, I won't swear, that make you want to jump out of bed in the morning and say, yes, another day. But here's the catch: you have to balance that excitement with intentional rest and reflection, because it's easy to get caught up in the rush of trying to achieve. But if you don't take time to pause, recharge, and reflect, that hunger can quickly turn into exhaustion, aka burnout, right? So the goals with balance, with rest, with hunger, with curiosity, with constant action. That's how you keep individual hunger healthy, sustainable, is by that rhythm that we just went through. Now, when it comes to teams, Chris, the key here is to establish a shared vision that gets everyone excited. By the way, your company vision might not excite anybody. So I want you to think about that. Like, how do you have a company vision but also have micro visions for the teams in the direction in which you want them or you feel like they should go? A team is at its best when every member feels like they're working towards something bigger than themselves, by the way. Bigger than themselves. Um, when they're working on something that matters. But here's the thing, it's not enough to just have a shared goal. You've got to create a culture where team members support each other's hunger for the growth, celebrate each other's wins, offer help when somebody's struggling, and making sure that everyone feels valued and recognized for their contributions. We have too many it's me Jimmy's, it's me Susie's in organizations trying to take all the credit for what a team did. A hungry team isn't about individual glory, it's about collective success where everyone is pushing each other to be their best, not just for personal gain, but for the success of the entire team. When hunger becomes a shared experience in teams, it becomes more powerful and more fulfilling. So let's take a step back, 50,000-foot company culture. If you want to harness the power of hunger without falling into the trap of toxic hustle culture that we've talked about, you've got to create an environment that celebrates both hard work and well-being. I know we've said it before, but it has to be an action item. Employees need to feel like they can push themselves and strive for growth, but they also need to know that their well-being is valued just as much as their productivity. Ladies and gentlemen, there are too many organizations out there. I've been in several historically that have nets and ceilings. I want you to do a audit of your organization. Do you have nets and ceilings? Do employees feel like they're trapped? They can only go so high, and if they fall, they're going to be safe anyway because everybody gets a blue ribbon prize at our organization. Just something to think about. Offering opportunities for growth, whether through learning, development, mentorship. By the way, every organization should have a mentorship program. There's stats, by the way. I just did an interview with Dr. V, who was a speaker at Inbound. And she gave stats, and that'll probably be out next week on the socials and YouTubes. She gave stats around the growth. It could be gross growth, but the growth initiatives of organizations that actually have a mentorship program and what that meant for ROI and the cash of the culture. Anyway, you have to give these opportunities for growth, learning, development, mentorship, and absolutely battle against the glorification of overworking or overlearning burnout. A company culture that encourages balance, innovation, and rest. I know that's not going to be popular with some organizations. Will keep hunger alive in a healthy way, and employees will feel empowered to push their boundaries, knowing that their limits are respected and that their growth is supported every step of the way. I know, Chris, people might watch this and they're like, yeah, George, you're great, buddy. You're very aspirational. And if that's where I'm leaving you right now, I would ask you to just do one thing for me. Ask yourself, what if? And then ask yourself, is it possible? I believe all of this could be a real world if organizations are picking up the superhuman framework, the elements, and implementing them in ways that are absolutely possible for us to do. Chris, what are your thoughts, brother?
I don't know if I can add that much. I'll just say, like, uh, I love getting people to think about the question of what if it works instead of what if it doesn't. Right? It's so easy to talk about what if it doesn't. Um, Meanwhile, there are very real examples all over the place, successful organizations already doing things. And it's easy to cherry pick and say, like, oh, we're not like, yeah, they have ping pong tables and they have meditation spaces and all these things, but clearly, uh, they're getting rid of people over here and their intentions, like, there are examples out there of people doing this the right way. But when you just pull back and you think about the human beings involved, this is not rocket science. It's not easy, but it's not rocket science either, right?
So I have to jump in here because you unlocked two things in my brain, and then I'll shut up and I'll let you do the outro here for the show because we're already over time. You said it's not going to be easy. You know what? I love Les Brown, and Les Brown says when you do what's hard in life, life will be easy, and when you do what's easy, life will be hard. Ladies and gentlemen, I never said implementing the superhuman framework was going to be easy, but your life will be easier if you do it. It's hard, but if you do it. Chris, the other thing that you said is like, what if it doesn't work? And immediately I got a visual of a dartboard, and this is for all of you cricket or dartboard fanatics or fans. What if I don't hit the red bullseye? I hit the green one. It's still a bullseye. What if I don't hit the red or green bullseye? I hit a 19 or I hit a 17 but at least I'm throwing the damn dart at the board. And because I'm throwing in a direction, I'm going to hit something that is better than it just sitting in my hand.
Amen, brother. That's going to be the hardest part for most leaders and organizations and individuals. The decision to move, like, get started, do something. You will learn immediately, right? Every dart I throw, I understand, okay, I need to do something a little bit differently next time if I'm trying to hit this target. I might have different points in front of me, so I'm not even aiming at the bullseye anymore. I'm aiming, somewhere else to get to that final goal. And ultimately, it comes down to awareness. But you gotta move. You gotta get started. So as you take a look at all this stuff, we've gotten, I think this is, I've done 6 pillars now. I've gotten a lot of great feedback. This is really helpful information. I know we're on the right track here, but there's so many nuggets. George is going to keep creating content around this and making this as consumable and tangible as possible for all levels of the org. And like a lot of things right now, you have the resources. You'll have the resources you need. You'll have the help you need, but it still takes your decision to start moving forward and take that hunger and actually like put it towards, something where everybody wins. So as you think about that hunger in your organization and kind of match it against what we're talking about here, look for those opportunities, find the opportunities, and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Chris.